the mission of the city's operations. So it's a pseudo recommendation, but the city has already taken action for putting this in
And this is
play.
all well and good, Mayor, but the fact of the matter is, we sat here in April and March and April, and point blank directed no spending. So if this body's, the lawmakers of Portsmouth,
They are the lawmakers.
if it doesn't mean anything, then what's the point? So in my personal opinion, it's still, if we make the rules sitting around this table, that becomes the law of Portsmouth, and you violate it.
That's correct.
Simple as that.
I concur. All right. Thank you very much, ma'am.
Thank you.
Yeah. We clearly, I don't know where we are, Madam Manager, in the throes of this process, but I think we need a complete bottom-up review of all of our procedures to make sure that we don't have things, and I think I spoke with the auditor last week about that very issue as well. We need to make sure that we get all of these things addressed and everybody is up to speed on it. And as far as what council should be briefed on, I don't know if we need to know all of the intricacies, but we certainly need to know the high level in making sure that this kind of action does not happen again.
Mayor, I would assure you that from the bottom all the way up to the top, the examination has already begun. I've already met with Mr. Thomas on 2 occasions. We'll be working very closely together, and I will keep you apprised on my findings. But policies and procedures that are in place will be followed.
It's just amazing. And I know we're 263 years old, but clearly there were procedures and things in place at some point in time, and somehow these things just through necessity either get relaxed or changed, or somehow conveniently we can't find them. That just is troubling to me, because I know an institution of this size and this age clearly has addressed these things, and how we got to where we are is very troubling. And hopefully, once you get done with that, we can. Dr. Wood.
Yeah, according to the auditor, what I heard, the procedures were followed. They used a loophole, which goes to a deeper issue of the organizational culture that has been allowed to exist, and so.
But if it's allowed, it's allowed.
Yeah, right. Well, that's why I'm glad Dr. Patton is on board,
right.
Because there has to be an organizational shift in the culture where that type of behavior is known that that's not going to be acceptable. And so it's one thing to have the rules in place, but if people don't have the spirit and the intent of following it to what it really intends to be, then you have those things if the organizational culture is not there. And so
then that goes back to Mr. Cherry's point. I mean, every one of these department heads and folks in this room and clearly saw us go through this budget process and what we said we wanted and did not want, and it still happened. So
I should also call to council's attention that there exists the Portsmouth, Virginia Code of Ordinances. And in the Code of Ordinances, it speaks to, from the CFO all the way down, of what oversights, what management is to be done by those who are holding such positions. So I don't want it to appear or be misinterpreted that the city does not have in place codes and ordinances that govern the chief financial officer and the responsibilities all the way down to Parks and Recreation and the responsibilities. It is in the city code.
I guess one last troubling thing for me is just prior to cutting any check, whether you have all these procedures in place or not, the guy cutting the check or the gal cutting the check, there's always should be someone calling and saying, hey, look, I got a $300,000 invoice here for X, Y, and Z. And if it's not a sign-off, it's a conversation with the chief financial officer or someone.
Yes.
And for those types of things to go through and no one saw. But anyway, thank you. Anything else on this? All right, thank you. Next item.
We have no other reports from the city manager, city council liaison reports.
Okay. Are there any liaisons? reports?
I didn't have liaison, but I did want to call something.
Sure.
A while back we had a group wanted to do the apartments out there at by TCC, and they wanted had we not needed to rezone that, they'd been able to build the low-income housing that they wanted to.
Right.
Back when I served on the planning commission, there was a housing use permit. Somehow that went away, and we need to go back to that process Dr. Patton, I think we need to look into going back to that process, because right now we have taken, council doesn't have any control. Once something is zoned, if it's zoned multi-housing or multi-family, whatever it is,
We're out of the loop.
they can build it. Not only do we not have it, the citizens don't have any input. So they don't have no input on what goes next door to them. No say-so, no process, no hearing that they can go and speak to. And there's no point in speaking to us because we can't do anything about it either. So we need to get ourselves and the citizens back in that process, so we can have control of with all the multifamily housing we got going up around here right now. We need to be
Absolutely.
in charge of that process.
Absolutely.
And have a say-so and be able to get our citizens' input on what's built where. But right now, where I understand it, I spoke to some people in the planning department about this earlier, before you came on board.
Yes.
But I want to share it with you, so maybe you can come back to us next meeting or whatever.
It'd probably be beneficial to get, especially out there with the Victory Village site, because we did some things that were a little unusual with the developer, allowing a lot of the things that they wanted to kind of rule the day, and which kind of removed us from the process. And I think in that process, the developer hung himself, because there were some things that he wanted to change that they had to come back, and we had to go through that whole process. And I'm sure there was some merits with allowing that, but it's been quite a few years now, and we need to make sure that we are involved in that process.
You're talking about multifamily, right?
And,
Yeah, the housing process. I don't know how deep it goes, because it just dawned on me about this particular project. We don't have any say-so, whether it's market rate, low income, whether it's whatever, whether it's condos, whether it's apartments, we don't have any say-so. It's zoned for it. They can just go out and build it and do it. So, but we need to be in that process. I'm not talking about trying to make any money. We just need to be in the process. It can be free for us, I care to commit, but we need to be able to have sign off, because we're the keepers of the vision.
Yes.
And we can't keep the vision if we can't control it. And our citizens have zero input on what's going to be built in their neighborhood.
Right.
And that's unsaid.
There's been an unwritten agreement between ourselves and EDA and the other agencies that they do a cursory and run by council whether or not we would be in favor of or not prior to them going through that process. Maybe we need to formalize that.
We need to be the keepers of the
Or we need to be the keepers of the peace.
Because this is what's happening, and I'm liaison on a couple of those presentations. They would agree that about what needs to be happen, but not, they don't always have the heart to look the developer in their face and say no. They'll pass it on to us, so we can be the bad guy, so we can say no.
Which we don't have a problem with.
We don't have a problem with that. But my point is, if we appoint them and give them the authority to do that, use it, because they have to put themselves in the citizen's position. That's why we have citizen boards, to represent the citizen's point of view. And if that's not in their best interest, if you need to have the guts to look a developer in the face and say, this ain't in the best interest of our citizens, and say no. And by the time, because it comes to us, and it has all the checks, everybody's agreed, everybody said yes,
Yeah.
this commission said yes, this department said yes, that department said yes. When you talk to them on the side, they don't believe that. They don't say yes, because they want us to say no. And I don't have a problem with doing that. So that's why I say we cannot rely on it, the commissions or departments, because people have different relationships and all those kind of things for reasons they don't have to, they don't want to be the bad guy. But we get paid to be, we elect to be the bad people, because that's what we have to be sometimes. But always to protect our citizens. It's not about being the bad guys, it's about making sure our citizens are protected. And the boards, commissions, mayor, they don't always, I always tell them to leave the politics to the politicians.
That's right.
So
Okay.
that's where it should be. So that's my point of view. And we need to make sure that we can take care of that, because we count on the board or individual department to do that, it may never happen.
So what you're saying, Mr. Chair, is that you would like to have a housing use permit review presented to City Council to see where we are right now with the process. And then council will have opportunity to have input on whatever changes would like to be made to that process.
And if you talk to the plan, they'll know that right now, once it's zoned, we out of it. I just want to be back in that process to be able to say, you're building this, we don't think this is right.
Yes, sir.
Was that an ordinance that shifted it from council back to a departmental review?
No, right, went from department, went to the,
So-
well, actually, once it was changed the last time, there was no vote, no input, it just was, it's zoned that way, you can build it.
So that was a manager's decision? So I was curious,
No, the council had to change it, somewhere between,
Is that part of
Okay.
that big zoning change?
somewhere between 2007 and 2009.
so
Well,
we
you
need
get caught in this quagmire with some developers approach some council members and say, hey, you know, this is really hard doing business here because I got to wait for this and I got to go over here to do that. And you'll get 2 or 3 coming here and start saying, you know, we're really not friendly to developers. You know, this guy needs to wait 45 or 85 days to get these things done. And somebody says, okay, well, why don't we just take that decision and make it the planning director or someone else, and
Make it
and
clear.
everybody nods, and then that guy down there becomes King Fula, okay, and then we are where we are. And
So do we need an ordinance?
yeah, we need to review
We
that
gotta review
and
first.
make sure that we got the right balance,
Right.
because we don't want to intentionally just hold up projects, but these developers and people understand the time frames in all of these cities to get things done, and to bring things at the last minute always appear like it's the last minute, and then, you know, they need 45 days or they need us to jump through hoops, and it always makes it look like that there's something broken in the process. And so, and some of that is by design, and we've got to be smart enough to make sure that when those things come before this board, that, you know, we'll handle it in the way it should be handled.
And I'm not talking about a process that's going to take 45 or 50 days to get from them to us. I'm just talking about bringing it to us. Just saying, here it is. This is what they want to do. Do you want to give them a housing permit to do this? Simple as that.
It's called being in the loop.
Or being in the loop,
And
right.
we have sent mixed signals. On one hand, we want things to be more efficient based on the feedback that some of us get from time to time. But being efficient doesn't mean that we have to be out of the loop.
Right.
Because the citizens will put us back into the loop if we end up with something.
They're
that's
called
not right.
elections.
Yeah.
And right now, they're out of the loop as well.
Yeah.
If you're going to build next to your house, you got no say-so if it's zoned that way.
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Miller in my office advises that that change occurred when the zoning code was redone in 2012, 2010, sometime around then. So my office would be more than happy to work with the city manager's
Yes.
office, and I'm sure planning, and
Yes.
figure out, you know, what needs to be done to bring council more into the loop. Mr. Miller's very well versed in the zoning code, so we'd be more than happy to work with
So
him.
we don't want a long drawn-out process.
No.
Add 45 days.
No.
But we just,
No. We're going to review and bring in a swift manner back to you what it is.
And while we're on that, where are we with the victory piece? Are we prepared to talk about that?
pictures for.
The Victory
The
Village
development?
piece? Yeah, that whole development piece.
Well, the clock ran out in August.
Yeah, I understand, but I
So-
thought there was supposed to be something coming. Well, I'll take the action on that, because we need to get that back front and center.
Come back in October.
And anything else as far as boards and
Rezoning
commission?
application comes back in October
October.
on that matter.
October?
Yes, sir.
Next one.
Yeah, but,
We can get that back on your calendar.
well, I have a lot to say about that. Okay. When that comes up.
October.
I'm not interested in rezoning 61 acres just
Yeah, no.
for you use 6, okay? It's not, and then you have all these things you can do, like we are talking about now, by
Without
right,
coming, right.
and we have no say-so.
Right. Okay.
So I think we deal with each one of those individually.
Okay, anything else? All right, I think we've got a motion to go into close. What about the, what are those rules?
Yeah.
Yeah, where are they at? No.
Y'all don't have,
Let's,
You ready for the
actually,
motion?
let's go a motion and go into close, and then we'll come out, and then we'll handle that last rules piece. All
I
right.
move to go into a closed meeting pursuant to Virginia Code Section 2.2-3711 for consultation with legal counsel and briefings by staff members or consultants pertaining to actual or probably litigation. 2.2-3711A7, and discussion and consideration of prospective candidates for appointment to boards and commissions, and discussion, consideration, performance of specific appointees or employees of any public body.
Second.
Mr. Cherry?
Yes.
Dr. Edmonds?
Yes.
Mr. Meeks is absent. Mr. Moody?
Yes.
Ms. Simmons?
Yes.
Dr. Whitaker?
Yes.
Mayor Wright?
Yes.
We are enclosed. Thank you.
Okay.